Need to finish your bachelor's? UMass Lowell offers one of the lowest online tuition rates in the nation and over $1 million in financial support. Explore course options starting January 18th at UMass Lowell. More details at gps.uml.edu.
Did you know there are millions of people in America without the health insurance they need? You feel like it's too pricey and just not worth it? Well, you deserve better and better. They're on a mission to help everyone get the coverage they deserve. Affordable plans with a nationwide network of local doctors. That's why they're America's #1 marketplace health insurance. Ambetter, on a mission for better. Enroll now at enrollambetter.com. Ambetter from NH Healthy Families is underwritten by Celtic Insurance Company. This is a solicitation for insurance.
Welcome to IPMNation.com, the next generation of Internet radio, powered by Impact Player Music.
Well, this is it. Welcome one and all to the debut edition of Matt Connarton Unleashed here on IPMNation.com. Well, I've been thinking about this all day. This moment, the very first episode ever of Matt Connarton Unleashed. Actually, it's been a long time coming. I've been thinking about it all day, but truth be told, I've been thinking about doing this for a long time. My own political show. It'll be politics, music, might talk some religion. Those are my three favorite subjects, actually. And our regular time will be Tuesday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern here on IPMNation.com. But I decided I wanted to hurry up and get the debut episode out of the way. I'm very comfortable in front of a microphone, but I have to admit, I'll just come out and say it. Tonight, I'm a little bit nervous because as much as I do this, and I'm told I'm a little bit loud. Thank you. Let me turn the mic down a little. As much as I do this, I do radio and TV and all that. This is my first time where, it's literally just me. I am by myself in this room, broadcasting live right now from Essence at 832 Elm Street in downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. And, I've been thinking about this for a long time, doing a show like this. I do have shows on IPMNation.com that I'm involved in hosting. I host a show called Remote Transmission. It's an interview show. I interview usually musical guests from around the country who call in, or some local that actually come into the studio. And I do host a local show called Local Outbreak, which airs in central New Hampshire on 100.1 The Planet. And then we replay it here on IPMNation.com. And I'm also the co-host on Norman Friends. And I just became the co-host on The Mar Regime, which is a new political show that runs Wednesdays at 6 p.m. here on IPMNation.com. That's also a TV show. So, I'm no stranger to doing this kind of stuff and to hosting radio shows and whatnot. But this is my first time doing a show like this where I'm going to be doing the majority of the talking. In fact, tonight I'm probably going to be doing all the talking, although the phone line is open. But I want to kind of do the first show by myself, no guests, no panel. No one is here with me. The idea tonight is to kind of introduce myself for people who don't know me, for people who haven't heard me, kind of explain what this show is about, what I'm trying to do with this show, and and hopefully stir things up a little bit so that in future shows we do have some participation. Some people ask me, well, why do you want to debut the show on a Friday night? Who's going to be listening at 11 o'clock on a Friday? But, truth be told, we've actually been surprised in the past at what happens when we do a show on a Friday or a Saturday night. It's internet radio. You don't expect the crowd that listens to internet radio to be sitting around the computer. They're out and about. They're out at the bar doing whatever. But we usually do have some listeners when we try to do like a weekend special. So, but that's okay. Even if we don't have a lot of listeners tonight, the podcast will be available shortly after we go off the air, and people can stream it, download it, keep it forever and ever. So, I want to explain first a little bit about what the show is about and how it got its name. Let's see. I've wanted to do a show like this for a while, and I've wanted to do a political show. We used to have a political show on IPMNation.com that was called Stephen James Blake Countdown to Reality. It was the very first talk show that we ever aired on this station. When IPMNation.com started, it was one show called IPM Nation, and it was a music show with a lot of talk. It was hosted by myself and a gentleman named Matt Marsill from Tweak Sound and Mastering in Concord, New Hampshire. And it was music and a lot of talking, and we do some comedy and whatever. And then Steve's show, Stephen James Blake Countdown to Reality, was our first talk show, and that became the second show ever to run on IPMNation.com. It was also the longest running show on the station. As some of our listeners are probably aware, Steve tragically passed away in November of last year during the holidays. So obviously that was the end of that show, although you can still listen to the archives. Those will be here always on IPMNation.com. So we really didn't have a political show anymore. Now, what we do is, I'm getting some encouragement online. That's great. Thank you. So that show went away. We recently, actually just this week, the same week that this show is launching, which is right now, we also had on Wednesday the launch of the Marr Regime. And that is hosted by Cheryl Marr, who was a recent guest on Norm and Friends, which runs Wednesdays at 4 p.m. live. And Cheryl came on that show. And then last week, her show premiered, The Marr Regime, which is a political show. And she very graciously asked me to be her co-host and to kind of fill a similar role as the role that I fill on Norm and Friends. So I'm the one answering the phone, and I make a lot of sarcastic remarks, and I bring a little comic relief to it, but I also butt in with my political views and whatnot. So we do have another political show, but I really wanted my own thing. I wanted my own show where I'm the host. I get to rant about whatever I want, whatever's bothering me, whatever has me fired up. I'm generally, for people who know me, I'm generally a pretty laid back, easygoing guy. I don't get upset about much. I'm pretty even keel, but there are things I'm passionate about. I am a political junkie. I love politics. I don't pay much attention to local politics, but I've always been very into national politics. I love national politics. My very first political memory ever is I was just a little kid, but I remember being at a convenience store. The year was 1980. I was at a convenience store with my father, and I saw Time magazine. And on the cover of Time magazine, now again, like I said, this was 1980, there was a caricature drawing of Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter running a marathon race, and they're about to cross the finish line. Because in 1980, during the presidential election, Reagan, of course, was running for president, challenging Jimmy Carter, who was on his way to being severely defeated in the election. So it was a caricature drawing of the two of them. And then way off in the distance behind them, there was a third person, John Anderson. And everybody's probably going, who? John Anderson was the third party candidate. He was kind of the Ross Perot of that era, although not nearly as batshit crazy as Ross Perot. But John Anderson was the third party candidate, so he was way in the background because he didn't have a chance. But I remember looking at the cover of Time magazine, and I was just fascinated by the picture. And I asked my dad about it. I actually kind of knew, even though I was just a little kid, I kind of knew who Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan were. I had no idea who John Anderson was. My dad had to explain it to me. But that is literally my very first political memory. And that was the beginning of it for me. That was the start of my fascination with politics. And it just never stopped. And I'm getting really fired up now. We're getting into presidential season. Election night is my Super Bowl. I don't give a shit about sports. I've never cared about sports for the same reason I've never cared about porn. Unless I'm actively participating, it's not interesting to me. I don't want to watch. But I love politics. And election night's a big deal for me. And the presidential election, my God, it's only every 4 years. That's I mean, that's the big one. That is the biggest deal for me. You know, I just go nuts. I'm flipping channels. I'm watching all the election coverage. I'm looking to see which networks are calling which state for which candidate first. It's just I just love it. I love it. I eat it up. So, you know, we're in the election season now. A lot of Republicans have announced their candidacy. A lot of Republicans should be severely embarrassed by some of the people who are getting into the race. Let me tell you now that I've kind of explained the show. Well, I haven't fully explained the show. It's not going to be all politics. There's going to be some music involved. I'm going to have guests on. It's not just going to be political people. But politics will probably be the kind of the centerpiece. Ideally, I do want to have musical guests every week. And I have a few tunes I'll play tonight. At some point, I'm going to want to stop and catch my breath. But that's basically what this show is. And it's called Matt Connarton Unleashed because this is my opportunity, finally, to really just say whatever's on my mind. I'm going to piss some people off. I'm going to hurt some feelings. Some people are going to be surprised at some of the things I say because some people may think they know me and think they know what I think about certain issues and what my political beliefs are, but I may surprise some people. I may upset some people. I'm going to really let it fly. And it's internet radio, so I don't even have to censor myself. I don't swear much anyway. I think if you're a truly creative, intelligent person, you don't have to go around swearing. I kind of feel embarrassed for people who use the F word like a comma because they don't know how stupid they sound. No offense if you're one of those people who do that. It's kind of become a normal thing in society. A lot of my friends do that, so I'm sorry if you're offended that I'm saying if you do that, you sound stupid, but you do. Also, too, I'll tell you right up front, I have a very politically incorrect sense of humor, but I'm very liberal-minded socially. I'm not racist or sexist or misogynist or homophobic or anything like that. So if you ever hear me say anything like that sounds like I am, I promise you I'm only kidding. I have a very dry, sarcastic sense of humor, and there are people I've known all my life who to this day don't know when I'm kidding. However, beginning with episode 2 of Matt Connarton Unleashed, we're going to have a segment at the beginning of every show where I talk about specific moments in the previous week's show, and the name of the segment is Shit That I Didn't Really Mean, where I just go through all the things I said that I didn't really mean, so everyone who's angry at me or offended about something that I said where I was only kidding, I clarify for you, by the way, I was only kidding. I don't want to say something offensive and then say immediately after it, I'm just kidding, and it just kills the effect of the joke. But if I wait until the next episode and say, oh, by the way, remember when I said this? Yeah, I was only kidding. So, where do I fall politically? This is important because, like I said, I want to put it all out on the table. I'm not going to bullshit you. I don't want to mislead anybody. I have no interest in being fair and balanced, by the way. I'm just going to express my opinions, and people can call and debate me or argue with me in the chat room or whatever. That's great, but I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. Not that fair and balanced means anything anymore anyway. Fox News made sure that phrase doesn't mean anything. I mean, if I sit here and tell you I'm, quote, fair and balanced, that's really just me saying I'm full of shit, right? So, anyway, yeah, I'm not a fan of Fox News. I do like Fox News Talk Radio, though. We actually carry that on IPMNation.com. I can get into why I like that, but I can't tolerate Fox News, the television station, another time. But here's where I am politically, so that you know right up front, before I really get into it. I am an independent. I'm basically a centrist, but I'm an independent with a tendency to vote Democrat, a strong tendency to vote Democrat. In fact, I have yet to actually vote for a Republican. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, okay, so he's one of these people who calls himself an independent, but he always votes for the same party. So he's really a Democrat. Well, here's the thing. I came to a point several years ago where I realized that I could no longer be a part of the Democratic Party. I can't support something that I think is fundamentally evil. Now, what I do is when I vote Democrat, I'm really doing what, sadly, a lot of Americans do now, but we feel like we have no choice. Whether it's deciding between candidates or deciding which party to go with, we vote for who we think is the lesser of two evils. And I've come to the conclusion that most of the time, the Democratic Party is the lesser of two evils between the two major parties. Now again, evil being the key word. I think both parties are fundamentally evil, fundamentally corrupt. But I just kind of think the Democrats are a little bit less evil. I don't think the things that the parties represent, the ideals and the ideology itself, is evil, but I think, that it's a cliche, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. I think that's 100% true. And the system is broken, another cliche, but the thing is, the parties don't work for us. Our elected officials do not work for us. No matter how much we like to think that they do, they don't. When you elect someone to represent you, that individual does not really represent you. That individual represents their corporate donors and the special interest groups and the lobbyists who buy them dinner and give them all kinds of fancy gifts and whatnot and contribute to their campaigns to make sure that they stay in their cushy little Washington job. The parties are completely controlled by the corporations and the big money donors and all that. So who's really looking out for you and me? Nobody. Now, I'm an optimist by nature, but I'm not optimistic when it comes to this stuff. I'm very, very cynical. I still love it. I love politics. I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by the spectacle of it, but I am very cynical about it. These people do not work for you and me. We did not elect Barack Obama to represent us. We elected Barack Obama to represent everyone who donated to his campaign. All the big money liberals who donated to his campaign. But I'm not just picking on Obama. I know Obama bashing is kind of the cool thing to do now. I'm not really into it because I think it's boring because everyone else is doing it. I'll bash everybody. I don't care what party they're from. I'm an equal opportunity basher. Like I said, I don't give a shit about being fair and balanced. Will I bash Republicans more than Democrats? Probably. Because I do lean a little bit left on some things, but I do agree with the Republican Party on some things too. And there are some Republicans I genuinely respect and admire. I have to say this, though. I think Democrats are smarter. I just think they're more intelligent. I mean, you look at the Republican Party, look at some of the big marquee names in the Republican Party who are either running for president or flirting with running for president. You have people like Sarah Palin. I posted something on Facebook the other day, and I meant it. If you're a Sarah Palin supporter, please do not breed. And I'm dead serious about it. I cannot even stand the sound of the woman's voice. I don't understand what it is in this country where we have to pretend that stupid people aren't really stupid. I mean, George W. Bush could barely put together 3 coherent sentences. He was not intellectually up to the job of being the leader of the free world, but we all had to pretend for 8 years that he was, And sure, in private conversation, it's cool to say, oh, George W. Bush, he's an idiot. But
UMass Lowell offers 20 graduate degrees that you can complete for under $20K. Enroll today. Transform your tomorrow with UMass Lowell. More at gps.uml.edu.
If you're working for one of the, unless you're Keith Olbermann, you don't go on TV and say it, right? Everybody has to kind of whistle past the graveyard and pretend that, that he's a smart enough guy. I'm sorry, I call him like I see him. Sarah Palin, I believe, is borderline retarded. Also, Michelle Bachmann, another one. Please, if you haven't yet, go to YouTube after the show, type in Michelle Bachmann, check out some of her television appearances. She's a moron. Absolute moron. And This is why I think the Democratic Party is smarter. I'm not saying that there's not dummies on the Democratic side, but I just feel like Republicans, they seem to like stupid people. They kind of embrace them. They want them to lead us. It's very, very strange. All these people who support Sarah Palin, please, I mean, if you want to call and explain it to me, by all means explain it to me. Call me, 603-518-5440. Explain to me why this woman who doesn't seem to have the correct number of chromosomes, why do you think she is an effective leader? Why do you think she would make a good president? Sarah Palin, she's a moron, an absolute moron. Same thing with Michelle Bachmann. Back during the midterm elections, you had Sharon Angle in challenging Harry Reid in Nevada, another complete imbecile. You had, what's her name, Christine O'Donnell? Where was she, in Pennsylvania or New Jersey? Just somewhere in the Northeast. I forget what state she's from. She's so dumb. I mean, there are some really dumb Republicans out there. Here's the thing. I don't understand this whole anti-intellectualism. That's a hard word to say. Anti-intellectualism movement in the Republican Party. You guys on that side, you seem to love people who don't know anything. And I don't get it. What is that about? Where does that come from? It's like Bush. When Bush was running for president back in 2000. Now, I understand a lot of people didn't like Al Gore. But what is it that made people say shit like... I mean, I actually heard people say things like, oh, Bush, you know, he reminds me of me. He's like a regular guy. I could have a beer with him. He reminds me of my next-door neighbor. Hey, guess what, asshole? Your next-door neighbor isn't qualified to be president. And neither is George W. Bush. I mean, you want someone with the intelligence of your dipshit next-door neighbor to be president? Really? I don't want my president to be a dummy just so I would be comfortable having a beer with him and watching the game. I want my president to be so fucking smart and to have such a huge intellect that I would be literally intimidated to have a conversation with him because he is so, or her, I'm sorry, I don't want to be sexist, or her, because they are so much more intelligent than I am. That's what I want in my president. We're talking about the leader of the free world. We're not talking about the manager of the local Denny's. I want the person in that job to be absolutely brilliant. I want them to be a genius if possible. That would be great. I don't want my president to be some dumbass hick cowboy with learning disabilities, okay? That's what I don't want in a president. That's what I didn't want for 8 years. Look, I understand a lot of people don't like Obama. Like I said, Obama bashing, very, very popular right now. I have criticisms of Obama. Like I said, I'm an independent. There are things about the Democratic Party I do not like. But you know what's really, really cool? Aside from having the first African-American president, well, he's half black. He's the first African-American president. But you know what I think is just awesome? Whether I agree with him on something or not, at least he's smart. He is a genuinely intelligent man. He can speak in complete paragraphs. After 8 years of Bush, imagine a president who can speak in complete paragraphs, who can apply nuance to things, who's an intellectual. Oh my God, I know Republicans hate that. An intellectual. We don't want an intellectual in the White House. That's just terrible. Yeah, God forbid we have a president with a fucking brain. I don't understand. I don't understand why Republicans, what this anti-intellectualism thing is all about. What is that? Why do you guys like idiots? Why should idiots be in charge of anything? I mean, you know, when I go through Wendy's and they get my order wrong, you know, I think, you know, why is an idiot working in the drive-thru? I'm annoyed at that. You can imagine how apoplectic I was for 8 years, waking up wondering why a moron was running the country. So then we get Obama. Now again, at least he's smart. At least he's not an embarrassment. Now, of course, Republicans will say, well, okay, yeah, I'm going to come back to that. But I want to stick with the anti-intellectualism thing for a minute, because here's what's interesting. You do have people, Abstract 9 in the chat room says, because they're easier to control. Well, that's a good point, because a lot of people think that Dick Cheney was really running the country during the 8 years of the Bush administration, and that Bush was basically a puppet for Cheney and God knows who else. And, I think there could be some merit there, because Dick Cheney, while he may be fundamentally evil, he absolutely is, is a smart guy. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Dick Cheney's a smart, intelligent guy. Here's the thing, though. I mean, genuinely, you have Republican intellectuals. Just like you have liberal intellectuals, you do have Republican intellectuals. Any of my liberal friends listening to this are about to get upset with me, okay? I'm sure I've pissed off all the what I call redneck Republicans, people who just aren't Republicans because they embrace the ideology, but more just because they love their guns and they hate minorities and whatever. I'm sure all those people are furious with me now. I'm about to upset the liberals, okay? I told you, I'm not playing favorites here. I'm about to say something nice about, of all people, Newt Gingrich. Yes, I'm actually about to say something nice about Newt Gingrich. I know he's not a very popular guy on the national stage. This week, his presidential campaign already seems to have imploded. For anyone who doesn't know, his entire campaign staff basically quit on him. But Newt Gingrich is a very, very intelligent guy. He is a conservative intellectual. If I'm watching C-SPAN late at night, yes, I'm that much of a political geek. I have been known to watch C-SPAN. No. I'm not going to sit there and watch, the congressional hearings or shit like that. That's boring. But sometimes at night, late at night, I'll turn it on and I'll see a presentation or a speech by someone that I'm genuinely interested in. And I'm telling you right now, as much as I may disagree with him on a lot of things, if I see Newt Gingrich on television, I'm going to watch and I'm going to listen to him. I'm fascinated by him. And for the right reasons, too. Not because, some people are fascinated by him because they just love to hate him. I don't hate him. I don't hate the guy. I don't like some of the things he's done, some of the things he says, but he's very, very intelligent. And he actually has ideas, actual ideas. He truly does. He is a conservative intellectual, a genuinely smart, competent guy. And to my Republican friends, I would say this. Why is it that no one even likes Newt Gingrich? And I kind of understand why. We can come back to that. But putting that aside, no one gets excited about him throwing his hat into the ring for president. But there's all the buzz about people like Sarah Palin and Michelle Bachmann and these people who just frankly aren't very bright. But a guy like Newt Gingrich, truly intelligent and intellectual guy. And I admire him for that. I like that about him. There are things I don't like about him. I'm not saying I want him to be president. I do not. Much too conservative for me. But I respect his intellect. I'm about to upset my liberal friends once again. I'm going to mention another name. I'm going to say something, well, maybe a couple nice things about this person. Are you ready? Here we go. Mitt Romney. Now, Mitt Romney takes a lot of shit. Flip-flops on the issues. He's too stiff, People pick on him for that, which I think is a little bit unfair, but okay. But Mitt Romney is a smart guy. Very well-spoken. He's one of the few Republicans who actually recognized health care as a legitimate issue, and as governor of Massachusetts actually decided to do something about it. A Republican actually doing something about healthcare? That's virtually unheard of. The only time Republicans want to say anything about healthcare is when they're pushing back against the Democrats. Otherwise, they don't want to go near it. That truly is a third rail. And it's a third rail for him because it's actually, even though he solved the problem, Republicans hate that he did that, what he did in Massachusetts with healthcare. And we can debate the merits of that. We might talk about healthcare a bit later. But the point is, here's a genuinely smart guy with ideas, I'm not saying I want him to be president either. I'm not saying he'd make a good president. I don't know that he'd make a bad president. He certainly seems competent. If I had to pick between what version of Mitt Romney I wanted to be president, if I had to pick, I would pick the version that ran Massachusetts, because in Massachusetts, you can't be a conservative Republican and hold power. You can be a moderate Republican or a liberal Republican, which basically means you're a centrist, and that's what I like. I don't want some sort of crazed, off-the-rails, extreme right-wing conservative version of Mitt Romney, which is what he has to pretend to be during the primary season if he wants to have any chance of getting the nomination. But I'm just saying, to my Republican friends who are listening, if there are any listening who haven't already been insulted by me enough, why don't you more embrace the people in your party who are smart? There are lots and lots and lots of smart Republicans. But there's also just these idiots. Or you've got Mike Huckabee, who I don't think is an idiot, and he seems like a nice guy. Huckabee. And I by the way, I realize he's not running. He's already said he's not running this time. But he's another Republican who's on the national stage. He's not stupid, but he is an evangelical Christian. And I just want to say about him the same thing I will tell you about Sarah Palin. I have this rule that under no circumstances do I think an evangelical Christian should ever be allowed access to nuclear weapons. Why? Because an evangelical Christian, at some point, if we get into, say, a tense situation, like we did back in 1962 with the Cuban Missile Crisis, I'm afraid an evangelical Christian is going to start hearing voices in his or her head, thinking that God's telling them to go ahead and push the button. Because if you're an evangelical Christian, part of what's endemic in your belief system is that Armageddon is ultimately a good thing. Because, after all, Armageddon brings about the second coming of Christ and all the glory that comes with that. So, I'm afraid an evangelical Christian might be tempted to go ahead and blow up the world. So, I don't want any of those nut cases either. You don't have any of those on the Democratic side. So, I just think you've got smarter people on the left than on the right. On the whole, it seems that way. Let me get back a little bit, though, to where I fall politically, and then maybe we'll play a song. I do have some other things I want to talk about, but I want to explain why I arrived at the place that I did. Growing up, I grew up in a Democratic household, a liberal household. My mother, very, very liberal. I believe she is to this day. I haven't talked to her for a while, but I believe she still is. You know, she was a hippie, you know. My dad was very liberal when I was a kid, but he has grown conservative, as happens to a lot of people. You know, a lot of people are very liberal when they're kind of young and idealistic, and then they get older, and they, at some point, they become more conservative. So I grew up in a Democratic household. So I grew up a Democrat. It's the same thing that happens. I think that's true for most people who are political. However they grew up, that's what they believe to be true. It's all in how you were raised, right? It's the same thing with organized religion. You know, everybody, I mean, not everybody, some people convert, just like politically. But most people believe whatever set of beliefs they believe only for one reason, because that's what they were born into. You know, with religion, you believe whatever sort of arbitrary, belief system as far as what's going to get you to heaven, because from the day you were born, that's what your mommy and daddy told you was the right way, and that everyone else's way that didn't agree with you was wrong, that the way they taught you, that was the one true way, right? That's how most people decide their religion. Very stupid reason to decide to believe anything. I think people should think for themselves. But most people don't. And I think that's true, although probably less true with politics. I think people are more likely to change and evolve their own ideology politically than they are religiously. I think people cling to whatever they were born with religiously. That's another topic for either another segment or next week. But so I grew up a Democrat. I still have a lot of Democratic tendencies. I grew up raised on the idea that the Republican Party just cares about big business and corporations and rich people, and the Democratic Party was the party that looks out for the little guy, for the middle class, for the poor, that makes sure that we have social programs to help people and this and that. That's what I was raised to believe. So Republicans bad, Democrats good. That's how I was raised. At some point as an adult, at some point as an adult, I started to really question some of my beliefs as far as the Democratic Party. I started to question some things. I found myself beginning to disagree with some things and moving more toward the center. And then it was in 2008, during the lead up to the presidential election, where I finally decided that I could no longer be a Democrat. Now, I will say, I did end up voting for Obama anyway. I did end up voting straight ticket Democrat anyway. But I had to leave the party. And this is the problem. Both parties have become too polarized. Both parties have gone to the extreme. The Republican Party, I think, has gotten more and more conservative, less and less centrist and moderate. It's just gone too far to the right. But at the same time, the Democratic Party has also just gone too far to the left. I mean, I used to think it was ridiculous when I would hear conservative talk show hosts like Rush Limbaugh and some of these other people, Sean Hannity and Howie Carr, if you're from Boston, you know who Howie Carr is, when these people would refer to Democrats as commies and socialists. But I used to think that was an exaggeration. I don't think it's as much an exaggeration anymore. I do think the Democratic Party has gone too far to the left. Part of what caused me to feel that way was I became a small business owner. I became an entrepreneur. And eventually I came to the conclusion.
Finishing a bachelor's in under 2 years? It's possible for most adults with UMass Lowell's accelerated and affordable online courses. Explore course options starting January 18th at UMass Lowell. Visit gps.uml.edu.
Did you know there are millions of people in America without the health insurance they need? You feel like it's too pricey and just not worth it? Well, you deserve better and better. They're on a mission to help everyone get the coverage they deserve. Affordable plans with a nationwide network of local doctors. That's why they're America's #1 marketplace health insurance. Ambetter, on a mission for better. Enroll now at enrollambetter.com. Ambetter from NH Healthy Families is underwritten by Celtic Insurance Company. This is a solicitation for insurance.
That you cannot be a small business owner. You cannot be an entrepreneur in this country and be a Democrat and be a liberal. It doesn't work because Democrats don't think that way. As much as I love some of the principles of the Democratic Party, I do. I mean, I'm socially liberal. I am. I'm pro-gay marriage. I'm pro-union. I'm pro-choice. I'm pretty socially liberal. But I'm fiscally conservative, and I began to realize that there is something just very bizarrely and frustratingly anti-business about the Democratic Party. And I was raised with this idea that the Republicans were very pro-business, but that was a bad thing because corporations are bad and evil. At some point, during the evolution of my political thinking, I realized that corporations are not bad and evil. Corporations provide jobs and create jobs. So do small businesses. Small business is the engine that drives this country. But I don't think Democrats get it. You don't hear Democrats talking about entrepreneurship. You hear Democrats talking about the workers. You hear Democrats talking about unions, which is fine. I'm pro-union. I don't think anyone should be forced into a union, but I'm pro-union. But you don't hear Democrats talking about initiatives to encourage small business ownership. It's like it doesn't even occur to them. You always hear Democrats talking about things to help average Americans. Or ordinary Americans. Actually, that's the phrase I always hear Obama use, ordinary Americans. Do you know how much I hate that phrase, ordinary Americans? Could we please find something slightly less condescending? I do not want to be called an ordinary American. I like to think that Americans are exceptional, that Americans are unique, that Americans are able to overcome anything and do anything that we set our minds to. I don't want to be called ordinary. Just say Americans, to help Americans. Or, if you want to apply class to it, say, we need to do this or this, X, Y, and Z to help middle-class Americans. Don't say, we need to do this for ordinary Americans, or ordinary Americans are worried about this, so we need to fix this. I hate that phrase. I hate that word. It sucks. Stop calling us that. And I almost wonder if it's intentional. I don't think it is. I think it's a subconscious thing. But sometimes I wonder if it's intentional. If it's an intentional thing to remind us that we're not necessarily supposed to excel. It's okay to be middle class and not aspire to anything bigger. Just be middle class and keep voting Democrat. I almost wonder if that's the strategy. After all, middle class does vote Democrat. Rich people vote Republican, right? A lot of middle class people vote Republican too, which is funny. But we'll come back to that. But so I began to really, really question some things about the Democratic Party. I don't like the anti-business. I also, when gas prices started to get really out of control, I began to feel very strongly that we need to be drilling for oil in new places. We need to do it safely. I don't want to go out and kill wildlife. I don't want to destroy entire ecosystems looking for oil. But obviously something needs to be done. Yes, we need to get off our dependence on oil. Part of getting off of our dependence on oil is getting off of our dependence on foreign oil. So we need to drill for oil at home. We need to drill for oil in Anwar. Again, my liberal friends are probably like, what? We can't drill for oil in Anwar? Why can't we? Let's just get over it and do it. We need the oil, right? Gas is $4 a gallon. We need the oil. Well, when I was contemplating no longer being a Democrat, at least on paper, one of the things that happened was I remember a very specific moment. I was in my car. I was traveling from Manchester, New Hampshire to my home in Concord. This was in, I think it was in 2008, maybe 2009. I remember it was middle of winter. It was a very cold night. And I was on my way home from doing Steve's show, Steve and James Blake Countdown to Reality. And I was listening to, what was I listening to? NPR. They have the BBC World Service on late at night on NPR, at least the NPR station here. And they were talking about how there was a move in Congress to approve drilling for oil not in Anwar, but some other places in the Gulf, I believe, and that it had looked like it was going to pass, but Democrats blocked it. Democrats blocked it, so now it wasn't going to happen. So we weren't going to be drilling for oil in new places after all. And this was something where I agreed with the Republicans that we needed to do it, right? And so I hear this, and I remember I'm sitting there I'm all alone in my car. I'm by myself. There's no one with me. And I hear this, and I'm not one to like talk out loud when I'm alone. I don't talk to myself. But this really pissed me off. I was really annoyed that the Democrats had stopped the drilling that I felt we desperately needed. And I said out loud to no one, I said, you know what? Fuck these people. That's exactly what I said. And that's when I realized I can't associate with this party anymore because they're just annoying the shit out of me. There are so many things about the ideology of the Democratic Party that I love. But I cannot, I can't deal with this nanny state government getting in the way of progress BS anymore. So I had to leave the party. Now, some people will say to me, well, why don't you go over to the other side and become a Republican? Well, I'll never be a Republican because I, care about people. You know what I mean? If Republicans ran the world, there would be no unemployment. There would be unemployment. People would be out of work. But there would be no unemployment insurance. There would be no welfare. There would be no social safety net whatsoever. Now, if you're a Republican or a Libertarian, you think that's a great thing. Because if you're a Republican, your attitude is, well, I got mine. I got jingle in my pocket. I got a roof over my head. I don't care about poor people. Right? Right? If I'm wrong, and if you're a Republican and you're hearing me and you're saying I'm wrong, please call me. The number's right there on the screen. Please call me and tell me your position on this. But I'm pretty sure I'm right. So, I'm sorry, but we have to have a social safety net in this country. And I think it's patriotic to do so. Republicans pride themselves on their patriotism as though anyone who's not a Republican is not patriotic. That's their attitude. But I think it's patriotic to be compassionate. I think it's patriotic that when one of our fellow Americans falls down, we extend a hand and pull them up. My version of patriotism, my version of America is a compassionate place. Just like it says on the Statue of Liberty, give me your tired and your poor, etc. That's what I believe America should be. Now, do some people abuse the system? Yes, and it sucks. And it needs to stop, and we need to find ways to reduce fraud and abuse. I don't like it that my tax dollars pay for some welfare mom, to pump out 4 kids so that she can sit at home on the couch all day watching Ellen and eating Doritos. And who the hell knows where the father is, but she knows she's going to get more welfare money the more kids she pumps out. And, I don't like that. I'm not happy about that. But that doesn't mean, just because some people take advantage and some people abuse it, that doesn't mean you scrap the whole thing. What's the alternative? What do you want to do? You want to just have people, we already have homeless people. You want to just have more? You want to just throw everybody, anytime anybody's having a hard time? You know what I think is hilarious about Republicans? Or a very specific segment of them. Republicans, and there's a lot of them right now because the economy is so bad, Republicans who collect unemployment. I think that is very, very funny. You know what's funny about that? And don't get me wrong, I'm not laughing at anybody having a hard time. I'm not happy about anybody struggling in America. That's not what's funny. What's funny is if you're a Republican and you collect unemployment, I would love to know, how does it feel to support a party, vote for a party that doesn't like you? Because if you collect unemployment, the attitude of your party, if you're a Republican, is that people like you are leeches. People like you are siphoning off the system because we shouldn't even have unemployment as far as the Republican Party is concerned. We shouldn't have any social safety net. You don't have a job? That must mean you're lazy. Or maybe you're a minority. Yeah, that's what Republicans think, right? That's the attitude of your party. Go get a job. You don't have a job? Go get one. Well, there are no jobs. well, then you're just a loser, right? That's the attitude. But I've known Republicans who collect on insurance, who are Republicans, and it's like, how do you do that? No one can explain it to me. How do you vote for a party that hates you? Your own party hates you. Your own party thinks that you're a leech and a loser if you collect unemployment, if you use the system in any way. How does that feel? I really want to know. Someone should explain this to me. Or even worse, I'd love to talk to a Republican who's ever collected welfare. That would be a fascinating conversation. I don't personally know any, I don't think. I do know Republicans who've collected unemployment. I don't like to start arguments. Not off air. On air, fine. I'd love to have that conversation on the air. Off the air, I don't want to lose friends. So I've never said to any of my Republican friends who've collected, hey, how do you do that? How do you collect unemployment when your own party thinks that you suck for collecting unemployment? How do you vote for a party that if they were in charge, you'd be out on the street right now? You couldn't pay your rent if they ran the world and there were no checks and balances in our system. There was no such thing as divided government. It was just Republicans running everything. You'd be out on the street. You'd be living in a cardboard box and starving because you don't have a job. How do you do that? How do you vote for these people then? Do you stop and think about it? Does it even occur to you? So, anyway, I'm not a Democrat anymore because the party just went too far to the left. I miss Bill Clinton as president because Clinton, what's interesting about Bill Clinton is he talks like a liberal. If you listen to any Bill Clinton speech or watch any Bill Clinton speech, he sounds like a liberal. He really does. He talks about liberal causes. He just sounds like a liberal guy. But he didn't govern like a liberal. He governed from the center. And that's why I think he was a very effective president. Even a lot of Republicans will openly and freely admit Bill Clinton was an effective president. The economy was humming along. We were doing okay as far as foreign policy. No, we weren't at war, certainly. No major wars. I mean, we were bombing Kosovo, but, we were doing okay. We had 8 years of a pretty good time in this country. Things were pretty good, on balance. Never perfect. They never will be. But Clinton governed from the center. He was the kind of, I don't know. I mean, Alan Greenspan, who is, running the Fed, the Treasury at that point under Clinton, actually said in his book that Bill Clinton was the best Republican president he'd ever worked for. And of course, Bill Clinton was a Democrat. But the point that Alan Greenspan was making was that, fiscally speaking, he governed like a Republican. He balanced the budget. We actually had a surplus. Not a deficit, but a surplus in our budget when Bill Clinton left office. He was a true fiscal conservative. And Bush was the opposite. Bush came in. Bush is a Republican, right? So he's supposed to be a true fiscal conservative. And he left us with massive debt. Of course, most of that debt comes from a couple of bullshit wars that we shouldn't even be fighting. Anyway, so that's where I am politically. I don't like either. Abstract 9 in chat room says, yeah, I don't get how getting blowjobs has anything to do with your ability to run the country. Well, it probably helped him run the country. It helped him relax a little bit, Maybe he had nowhere to go. Maybe Hillary drags her teeth. Who knows? I don't know. I wouldn't mess with Hillary. But, I don't feel at home in either party. I have nowhere to go politically. Both parties upset me. I'm basically For a long time, I called myself a conservative Democrat. I said, you know, I'm about as conservative a Democrat as you can be and still get away with calling yourself a Democrat. I used to say, I'm a conservative Democrat. I could just as easily pass for a liberal Republican. Because really, what's the difference, ideologically speaking, between a conservative Democrat and a liberal Republican? Or, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say liberal, a moderate Republican. Republicans don't like the word liberal. A moderate Republican, we'll go with that. What's the difference? There really is none. The only difference is which way they tend to vote. A conservative Democrat obviously tends to vote Democrat, and a liberal Republican tends to vote Republican. But they're really the same. They're both centrists. They're both in the middle. They both tend to be socially liberal, but fiscally conservative. You know, they're on the fiscal side, they like low taxes, less government regulation, less government interference, lower spending. But socially, you know, they're more liberal. They're fine with gay marriage. They're pro-choice. You know, they oppose the death penalty. They, you know, all that stuff. But I just got to a point where I could no longer identify with the Democratic Party. That moment in my car when I got upset about the drilling, that was a big moment for me. It really was. It sounds like a small thing. I'm just riding along. I hear something that bugs me. But really, it was kind of the breaking point in my mind. I was like, I can't be with these people anymore. I may continue to vote for them because the other side is just awful. But I can no longer identify myself as such. But I still vote that way. I still watch MSNBC. Chris Matthews is still my cable news hero. I had actually, I want to keep this to, I want to keep the show to an hour, and we're coming up on an hour now. We may go 5 minutes over, but, and I have a song queued up for the end of the show. I want to touch on this quickly because I intended to open the show with this, and instead I got sidetracked with my ranting. I want to talk briefly about Anthony Weiner, and some of you may be sick to death of hearing about him, but the reason I wanted to open the show talking about Anthony Weiner and kind of giving my insight, two reasons. One is I wanted to open the show with something that everyone can relate to, because who hasn't posted pictures of their genitals online, right? No, I'm kidding. Here's why it's something everyone can relate to, because it's such a, it's become the kind of story that you don't have to follow politics to necessarily be aware of it. You know what I mean? It's really permeated the mainstream media in such a way that even if you're not a political animal, you probably know who Anthony Weiner is, and you probably know what he did and what kind of trouble he's in. For anyone who doesn't know, it started a couple of weeks ago. He tweeted a photo of his erect penis inside his underpants. But this went out on Twitter. At the time, he was claiming that someone hacked his account, that it wasn't really him, but he would not deny that it was his photo. Anyway, eventually he had to finally give in and admit that it was his photo, and that was his penis. And from the picture, it's pretty impressive, I have to admit. I mean, I'm not into penises, but, you know, it looks like a pretty big penis. Maybe I'm just easily impressed because I'm Irish. But, so, you know, he had a press conference, and if you haven't seen the press conference, you should go on YouTube and find it. It's actually painful to watch. It's like watching him slowly self-destruct, because he said way more than he needed to. All he needed to do is say, look, I'm sorry, I lied. It really was, I really did send that tweet. I meant to send it to a specific person, this girl online that I'd been flirting with. It was meant as a joke, whatever. But instead, he just said way too much. He started talking about all these other women that he'd been in communication with, how, I don't know, he took questions from the press. He should have just gone out there. It should have been a very quick thing, but he he dug himself deeper and deeper. Again, we're running out of time, so I don't want to get too deep into it, but he just, it was the wrong way to handle it. And you don't have to be I've never worked a day in politics, and I could tell you from watching this press conference, it's like, this is not the way to handle a scandal like this. Anyway, the other reason, though, that I kind of lost my train of thought, but here's what I want to say about this. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I remember now. The other reason why I wanted to open the show with this is there are certain issues that I want to discuss on this show where I've had thoughts and opinions about certain things that I haven't heard anyone else say, or that I haven't heard anyone else express. And things about illegal immigration and things about healthcare. One of the things is, I want to say something about Anthony Weiner that I haven't heard anyone else say, but it needs to be said. As people are dissecting what has happened to this man and what he has done and how he has handled it, obviously, it's a big scandal. He may have to resign. He's under pressure from his own party to resign because, he has displayed behavior unbecoming of a congressman. When, in fact, they're all into all kinds of shit, I'm sure. Just most of them are smarter about hiding it. He's under a lot of pressure to resign. Although there was a flash poll of New Yorkers, because he is from New York, and 51% said they don't want him to resign. That's a very slim margin, but anyway, I think he's going to ride it out, personally. But not only is it not appropriate for a government representative to be tweeting photos of their own penis, it's also extremely uncool that he lied to his constituents, lied to the country, lied to the press over and over again for, I think, 4 days straight before finally giving in and having his press conference and saying, okay, yes, I did it, I'm sorry, and all that. As people are now dissecting his behavior and analyzing what he's done, it's gotten to a point, though, where some people are saying, well, maybe he's sick. Maybe he has some sort of mental illness. Maybe he has some sort of condition which has driven him to engage in this very reckless behavior. And I just want to say, to all the people who are really analyzing him and analyzing his mental state and trying to figure out what's wrong with the guy, I think you're overthinking it a bit. I think he's a 46-year-old man who, because he's a United States congressman, he was in a position to flirt with very young girls who, because he's in a position of power, they were willing to flirt back. And I don't think there's any kind of sickness or mental illness involved here. I think he's just your typical red-blooded heterosexual American male who is using social media to flirt with younger women. And I don't think that's necessarily a sickness. I think it comes with having a penis, this type of behavior. I really do. I think trying to figure out if he has some sort of mental illness is looking a little bit too deep into it. So I'm not defending Anthony Weiner. I don't care that Weiner tweeted his wiener. I don't care about any of that. I do care that he lied to everybody. He lied to the voters, he lied to the country, and that's not cool. But it's forgivable. I mean, to start saying that he has some sort of psychological issues because of his behavior, you know what? He's a dude, and dudes do stupid things sometimes, and give him a break. He's not crazy. There's nothing wrong with him. He just made a mistake. It's like Bill Clinton after the Monica Lewinsky thing. Well, how could he take such a big risk? How could such a powerful man take a big risk like that? and imperil his presidency. Is he mentally ill? No, he's not mentally ill. He's a dude with a penis, and, he's probably stressed out. Dude's leader of the free world. He was stressed out. He wanted a blowjob. That's it. Don't think so deep into it. I mean, really. So, I'm not defending Anthony Weiner or his wiener. I'm just saying, I don't think he's crazy. I will begin to wrap up, but on future episodes of Matt Connarton Unleashed, I will unleash with some thoughts about illegal immigration. And you know what? Very briefly, I want to mention part of the reason, too, that I wanted to do this show, why I wanted to do my own political show that I'm the host of, is because on some of the other programs on IPMNation.com in the past that have not been political shows, but where the conversation has turned to politics, it has a tendency with some of our other hosts and some of the guests and panelists that we've had on the other shows, it has a tendency to go to this place where everyone starts talking about how illegal immigration is to blame for absolutely everything. People who are really, really upset about illegal immigration blame absolutely everything that's wrong with this country on illegal immigration. And I think it's kind of ridiculous. So I want to talk about that. We'll probably talk about that Tuesday night. I have some things to say about healthcare. I have more things to say about Newt Gingrich. I want to talk about white paranoia, which ties into the illegal immigration issue. I'll probably do some more Sarah Palin bashing. I'm sure by Tuesday she'll have said something else dumb. By the way, if you haven't seen it yet, please go online, go to YouTube, and find her remarks about Paul Revere. What I find hilarious about that particular debacle is even as she's talking about Paul Revere, she's doing so very hesitantly. You can tell that she realizes she's already in over her head. She knows nothing about American history. The woman is just an idiot. So anyway, before we wrap up, I want to talk briefly about tomorrow. If you're in the Manchester, New Hampshire area, Saturday night at 9 p.m. is Gormani Palooza at the Shaskeen right here on Elm Street in downtown Manchester. IPMNation.com will be on hand. It's being put on by Ryman Gorman from Mansterdam. Mansterdam is, of course, the #1 channel here on IPMNation.com. And those guys produce a couple of very popular shows, Mansterdam and The Peter White Show, two of our most popular programs here on IPMNation.com. And again, a big, big thank you to those guys from Amsterdam for having me on the show this past Wednesday night. Also, I want to say thank you again very much to Cheryl Marr, who had me on another political show that just launched this week, The Marr Regime. That is on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, right after Norman Friends. So you can get 3 hours of me straight now on Wednesdays from 4 to 7 p.m. Eastern. 2 hours of Norman Friends, and then an hour of the Marr Regime. Very happy to do that show with Cheryl. Cheryl is a conservative Republican, so I'm sure we're going to have some really interesting conversations going forward. Already, I'm getting the idea that we probably disagree way, way, way more than we agree. So that will be fun. I look forward to that. And on all seriousness, though, Cheryl's really, really cool. And I'm very honored and very happy that she invited me to do that show with her. And that was actually part of what sparked me to want to hurry up and get this show up and running. So be sure to check out episode 2 of The Marr Regime Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern. And you can, of course, get the podcast from the debut episode. That is up now here on IPMNation.com. Also, too, another political show to check out, Democracy Now! That is live weekdays at 8 a.m. and then it replays all day long here on IPMNation.com on the Democracy Now! Page. That's more of a left-leaning show, but they focus on world events. Really, really cool, very impressive. It's produced out of New York, I believe, but we carry it here. And, of course, we have Fox News Radio here on, which we also carry on IPMNation.com if you want your right-wing slant on things. Although they have Alan Combs on in the evening. And Alan is a liberal, so there actually is some balance there, much more balance than there is on Fox News, the television news network, which is, I could do a whole show about them. Maybe I will another time. Thank you, Abstract9 in the chat room for coming on. Thanks to everybody listening tonight. If you're getting this via podcast, thank you very, very much for checking us out there. The official time for Matt Connarton Unleashed is Tuesday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern. Cammie Baker will be coming on from HGTV. She will be my guest this coming Tuesday night. I think she's calling in. So we'll talk to Cammie a bit, catch up with her, see what she's up to. Haven't talked to her in a while. And we'll talk some more about maybe an Anthony Weiner update, some of the other things that I mentioned. Hopefully I can piss off some more people. And I'm going to leave you with, let's see. I got a couple ideas here for what we could play to finish up the show. I know what I'm going to play. This is a song called Pistols from Beneath the Sheets. By the way, that was Thanks for Asking by Chemical Distance at the beginning of the show. I forgot to mention that. But check this out. This is a really, really cool song. Between the Sheets is a band that Beneath the Sheets is a band that I had interviewed on Remote Transmission a while back. This is a great song. I'm going to play things that have kind of a political bent here each week to wrap up the show. So this is very cool. It's revolutionary in a way. It's got that Rage Against the Machine kind of vibe to it. So check this out. I hope to see you all Tuesday night at 11 p.m. Eastern for episode 2 of Matt Connarton Unleashed. Thanks, and have a lovely tomorrow.
UMass Lowell offers 20 graduate degrees that you can complete for under $20K. Enroll today. Transform your tomorrow with UMass Lowell. More at gps.uml.edu.
Did you know there are millions of people in America without the health insurance they need? You feel like it's too pricey and just not worth it? Well, you deserve better and better. They're on a mission to help everyone get the coverage they deserve. Affordable plans with a nationwide network of local doctors. That's why they're America's #1 marketplace health insurance. Ambetter, on a mission for better. Enroll now at enrollambetter.com. Ambetter from NH Healthy Families is underwritten by Celtic Insurance Company. This is a solicitation for insurance.